Once again, the world's attention has turned to Iraq for all the wrong reasons, as the international community nervously watches the Sunni-dominated Islamic State of Iraq and Syria seize control of the nation's north. Beyond the significant concerns over the human cost of this encroachment, markets have been quick to bid up the oil price. So how important is Iraq's supply of oil on a world scale, and what kind of impact could a significant disruption have on global prices? Iraq has the fifth largest reserves in the world at 143 billion barrels. This represents about 10% of the total reserves of the world's 17 leading suppliers. By comparison, Saudi Arabia has reserves of 265 billion barrels, Iran has 151 billion, and the US 27. Now, if you look at the geography of ISIS's march thus far, they've captured a series of oil fields in the northwest of Iraq, but are far off from the nation's biggest fields in the south. The south is predominantly Shia, so the ISIS forces will face a far more committed opposition there. But in their march through Iraq, ISIS have wreaked havoc on vital pipelines in the north. Expect more fighting between the northeastern Kurdish majority and ISIS for control of key oil fields there. Markets have reacted strongly because disrupted Iraqi production does have a clear impact on global prices. The first Gulf War saw the nation's oil production plummet from 2 million barrels in 1990 to 305,000 barrels a year later. The Iraq War that began in 2003 had a smaller impact, but still saw production fall by 35% that year. This is important on a global scale because analysts were looking forward to increased supply from Iraq to provide downward pressure on the spot price of crude. Iraq's oil production hit a peak of 3.3 million barrels per day in April this year, a record which was around 4.4% of the world's supply. This may not seem like a significant quantity, but with growing demand from developing countries like China, it does have an impact on the spot price. Output was also expected to increase for the foreseeable future, particularly as Western oil majors like Shell were helping to implement better extraction processes. Finally, on a local level, the price of petrol for Australian drivers is influenced by a number of factors, but is highly correlated to the international price of oil. And don't just think of oil's role in what you pay at the pump. In the weeks since sectarian conflict broke out, key commodities who rely on oil or petroleum for output have risen globally. That includes commodities like beef and sugar. Full-blown civil war will be fought along sectarian lines, but each group knows that with money comes power, which is why Iraq's oil wells will be part of any front line.